Well, welcome. This is the Inside Line Series wrap-up show. I'm Chris Stubbs, coming to you from Erebus Motorsport. Alongside me is a man with plenty of racing pedigree and the pit lane reporter of the moment, Andy Jones. How are you?
I'm very well, Stubbsy. Very, very well.
Andy, this has been a really cool series. This is something I think that a lot of us have learnt a lot about what happens behind the scenes. And I think in many ways it was perhaps a bit of a risk by this organisation to put themselves out on the line like this. Is this something that you would have signed up for back in the day?
Oh, look, I think if I put myself in a team owner perspective, there would have been pros and cons when this was originally discussed. Some of the pros are obviously the commercial value of having 8 hours of television go to air purely based around your race team. Some of the cons, though, when you are gathering 500 odd hours of television and you've got to cut it down to 8 hours, then maybe not the whole story is being told. But one thing for me that I've loved watching this series is it's just shown us another depth and another layer to our sport. Sometimes what it goes out on broadcast quality for the events doesn't always delve deeper into the rationale and the thinking behind professional motorsport, and this has certainly given us a really, really good insight into that.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing from all the stars from the show. A few secrets to come, a few fan questions as well. So if the guys and girls thought that they were finished, they're not done with just yet. If there was any team you're going to pick from the lane, you know the personality as well. This was always the first team you go to. The characters here, nothing is filtered, is it?
Definitely not. And I think, Erebus and Penrite Racing were made for a documentary series like this. I think in the past we've seen how free speaking Dave Reynolds is. And thankfully, this documentary has shown where that comes from. Betty certainly gives a lot of length to Dave. Yep. And perhaps, some of the colourful language Dave has learnt working with Baz, as we've seen throughout this series.
Well, you've mentioned a name. Let's start at the top of the tree. The star of the show, Betty Clemenco, joins us via video link from Sydney. Betty, how are you? First of all, why did you run the risk of putting yourself and your organisation up for this?
There was no risk. I don't have a closet. There's no skeletons in it. I always throw everything out there. So for me, it was no biggie.
What did you think, having watched back and seeing how it came together? Because the process of being followed this closely would have been, I would assume at the start, quite uncomfortable at times.
It was, but Lockie and AJ made it comfortable within a very short time. I enjoyed the fact that Lockie was taking most of the shots from far away.
I think, Betty, one thing for me that really shows and stood out throughout the whole series was, one, your enthusiasm for the sport, but also your openness to engage with Supercars fan base. Was that one of the motivators for joining and being part of this series, was to be able to give more access to your team?
I enjoy the fans. I enjoy going out there. I enjoy being part of their world, because they bring you into their life. They tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. They want to know, do you remember me from last year? And they become part of the family, and some of them you do remember, and some of them you've seen the children grow from this big to that big, and it's amazing what they can give you, and you can't hide anything from the fans, especially in motorsport.
Betty, how proud were you when you watched that final episode go to air, the montage at the end of this family that you've created here and what they've achieved, even though the results perhaps weren't as you would have hoped for the year, but you still must have taken a lot from it and been very proud.
Well, it didn't go the way I thought it would go, but in saying that, I thought it was brilliant. It could have gone a little bit more in depth, but that last 5 minutes was a really good wrap up, and even I had a little goose pimples going up my arm, and I think that people who watched it would understand where we were coming from. I would like to show it a little bit more in depth, but it was a very good show.
Another part of the series that I picked up on, Betty, was just how much of a family unit Erebus and Penrite Racing is for both yourself and Daniel. Anytime you have a gathering, it looked like Daniel was very happy to pick up a pair of tongs and fire up the barbecue. Is that something that was a conscious decision at his end to engage with everyone from within the team?
We've been doing it since GT days. We've been every time we have a team, doesn't matter which series it is, we always do a barbecue, we do family things. Even when I first started in V8s, I was a little, and believe me, I was a little intimidated by everybody. So at dinner time, I would take myself off to the ute category and have dinner with Barry and Loretta, and they would be barbecuing lamb with coleslaw, potatoes, and yummy stuff.
You just mentioned Barry there. Are you fearful that perhaps you're going to lose the great man? He was a star in his own right. He might be heading off to Hollywood, perhaps a casting call on the way for Baz.
The new the missing Hemsworth brother.
On that note, we'll introduce Barry Ryan, the CEO of the team here at Erebus Motorsport. Baz, I mean, the obvious one, how has your role been received?
I don't know. I've looked back at some of it and thought, who's that dickhead? But yeah, when you put it in context of all the things I said and did during the show, it's none of it I regret. You know, you can easily regret it just watching it and not knowing the background story, and that's probably where I get a bit of grief online from people that don't actually understand either the sport or winning or the culture you need to win. So, you know, I watched the Last Dance Michael Jordan thing, and he's got a real cutthroat sort of way of doing things, and you know, he sort of said a similar thing. I'm not comparing myself to him, but he was really hard on his team because he wanted his team to succeed, and it wasn't just himself. He wasn't worried about himself succeeding as much. He wanted everybody to come with him to make it succeed, and probably pretty similar.
Baz, you just mentioned culture. You and I have been in this game for many, many years, probably 20 plus years each. One thing that I noticed throughout this show was your leadership is very clear. It's very concise. You don't leave anybody wondering what you're thinking. I think that's a brilliant trait. Some people watching this were very opinionated on that. Has that been a clear decision making in your style of management, or is that just something that you've learnt at places like Perkins Engineering?
No, I think it's probably started just from Dad. He was pretty hard, and there was no bullshit. You had to do what he said, and you know, if you did what he said, you'd usually come out on top. And then obviously get into motorsport with John Faulkner. He was a hard nut. Larry Perkins, obviously, there's no bullshit with Larry, and very similar. So I didn't try and be like I am. It just comes naturally. And like I said, sometimes you look back and you go, I sort of don't get why I said it in that context, but you know deep down why you said it and why you did it, and you know, you're not really worried about who you're upsetting at the time because it's all about the team. And in a professional sport like ours, everybody's paid to do the job. So if you practiced it and managed the team properly and done all the stuff you're supposed to do and they fail, well, they have to be punished or, you know, sidelined or whatever I've said at the time, or I've said sacked, but no one's ever been sacked. So, but yeah, it's just part of me. I just can't change who I am. And sometimes you watch it and you go, did I say that?
And on the culture front, you said nobody's ever been sacked. For the last 3 years, you've maintained very much the same staff year on year, which in motorsport and particularly supercars is unheard of. For me, that speaks volumes on your leadership style. And although people are opinionated about it, you're obviously doing something right. Your success is very good and you're retaining staff, which is difficult.
Yeah, I guess 2016 we had a fair big turnover because it was the start of a whole new team pretty much in Melbourne, but some of the core guys are still here from the start of 2016, and some of them weren't supercar people, so they were racing people. So they sort of luckily probably don't know any other supercar teams, so they know our culture and our environment and how I talk to them and how they talk to me. And you know, it goes both ways. We're all pretty hard on each other, and I take as much shit as everybody else, sometimes from staff, you know, management level staff that are happy to tell me I'm wrong.
Betty, is his bark worse than his bite? Because you've sold part of the team to him. That was one of the storylines. So we know quite evidently your feelings towards Baz. You made that clear at the Christmas party and multiple times throughout the series. It means a lot to you, and he's very important, isn't he?
Barry knows what he means to me, but any business, any team without a strong leader will never succeed, because strength is sometimes not about how many people you can pat on the back. Sometimes strength is shown by how you lead and how strong you you make these people understand what they've done wrong. You know, anyone can pat on the back, but it takes a true leader to be able to pinpoint the problems and I wouldn't say yell at people about them, but explain to them in a forceful way. But Barry's Barry, and we accept that. We accept how he does it, what he does, and you know, I'm actually exactly like Barry, but in the business world, and I didn't want to bring that with me. So I leave that to Barry now.
And for what it's worth, for somebody that's external of your race team, everything that I saw Barry do wasn't unfamiliar to me. There was nothing that stood out that was wrong or incorrect. It's just purely part of professional motorsport. Betty, while we've got you there, I noticed that you were very big on some T-shirts throughout the series that had some slogans across it. Will we see a Barry Ryan range of T-shirts come out in 2020 with a few colourful bits of language across them?
Oh yeah, I've already started the ball rolling.
I bet.
Thanks for your time today. Congratulations, 500 hours of editing cut down into 8 episodes. There was always going to be so much good stuff that wasn't able to make it to air. So we can only imagine the stuff that must have been seen. A fantastic family and organisation that you've raised here. And thank you for allowing us as fans of supercars to witness what really goes on. So Betty, thank you. And we'll see you at the track soon.
It was great. I just wish they'd shown the interviews with my children and Barry's children. I think that would have really put the icing on the cake.
We might have to look into doing that further down the track, Betty, because
I just want all that film they didn't use. I need some blackmail material on Barry.
It is a family. It takes a family at home to support the guys and girls that go racing. We know that. Betty, thanks for your time. Cheers. All right.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you. All right, we're going to have a look at some of Baz's highlights. He was certainly one of the stars of the show. So much more ahead here on the Inside Line series wrap-up.
Good job, boys. Come on, Dave, get fucking closer. Fuck. Someone won't be here tomorrow if it fucking runs out. Professionals here. If everybody wants to kiss, they can f*** off. Well done, Shan.
Good job, Baz.
That thing zip tied on a car with Nitto tape underneath it. Race car.
See ya, I'm going. You all know who I am, so you know you all come up and talk to me, and we just get over it.
All right, Barry Ryan, we asked you before, what did you think watching back? What was the feed like back? I assume your wife, Loretta, who works within the team, would certainly know well how you are in the workplace. What about others? What have they had to say to you from other teams or perhaps family members, friends, etc.?
Yeah, team people and sponsors and all that, they've been really positive about it. And they're like, we get it, we see why you do what you do and how the team is such a great unit together. And we basically, strong discipline, all that. That's good from the sponsors and the other teams. Some of the public obviously think that, I'd never work for that guy, he should be sacked. It's bullying, all this sort of stuff. And sometimes it does probably border on bullying, but you've got to know the team environment to know whether it's bullying or not. And I don't think it is, but sometimes, I think maybe I'm bullying someone there, but everybody gets a pat on the back within 2 minutes of me yelling at them usually. It doesn't, I never have anybody that goes for 2 weeks without me talking to them. It's usually 2 minutes.
Something that happens quite a lot in motorsport, from my experience, Baz, is we run to some very, very tight drop-dead timelines, don't we? There's always countdown clocks at the back of the garages. Do you think some of the way that you interact with your group comes off the back of not wanting to waste any time, purely just having a problem, looking for a solution, and then looking for an answer with a clear direction on where you want to go?
Yeah, a little bit. It's probably more a bit of impatience. We've really no excuses. We've only been around 4 years, and we've tried to skip forward so quick to try and start winning things, and win Bathurst in our second season, and then wanting to do it again and again and again. And 2018 nearly did it, and everything we do is based around Bathurst, and anybody that says it's not is full of shit. But Larry was a big one for that in my 6 years with him, that everything was focused around Bathurst. The car was built around Bathurst, and I guess there's so much in that day that you carry it through the year almost to make sure that you're preparing to make sure that you can do that 1,000k race. Even if it's a short race, you need to do the best in that race to make sure you're not going to fail in the big race.
I guess at the end of the day, TV is pretty boring if you're walking around holding hands and
Yeah.
skipping through the park smelling the flowers, right? So we're always going to see the bits that are the most emotive and passionate, and no one can fault you on the passion, that's for sure. Your relationship with Mirko, how do you think that came across? Because it seemed that it's quite combative at times, and everyone has a different style and the way they go about it. How did you view that?
Yeah, well, it's fine. The first half of the season we'll probably at each other a bit, and it showed on the coverage. In the back half of the season, we had a little bit of a moment in the middle of the year where Mirko might explain later, but we're probably closer than we've ever been since we aired some differences. And Mirko's a very strong Italian presence, and he's someone you don't mess with, and I try and be that similar role with being the boss. So sometimes we butt heads, but it's always for a good reason, and there's always a result that comes out of when we butt heads. So it's always improved whatever we've had, whatever we said to each other. At the end of it, we've improved whatever we were trying to fix, or we've admitted we're wrong, whether it's me or him.
I've seen some brilliant dialogue at those data stations, and you've certainly added to that throughout 2019, Baz. You are a very, very well credentialed engineer in your own right. So when you speak to those guys in Al and Mirko, you speak with a lot of conviction. Do you think the fact that Mirko didn't have a lot of experience in supercars means that he challenges you more than, say, Al, who knew a lot about you and has come to you from other teams?
It's probably the opposite. Like Al, Al's not as strong a character as Mirko, so sometimes I've said things to him and I've thought, why did I say that? I've put too much pressure on him, but if I've got something to say, I'll say it, hoping that if it is the right thing, they'll do it. If it's not, they'll forget it, which they do. They're smart enough to make their own decisions. It's probably only a couple of instances where I basically demanded that's what we're doing, and it's not often, because both of those guys are really smart and they don't often get it wrong.
And 9 out of the 10 bits of information or suggestions you gave them were actually correct, with the benefit of hindsight when we watched.
Yeah, it was edited well to make it look like that, but sometimes it wasn't. And Dennis he'll probably step up here and say that half the time I was wrong, but it was edited well to make me look right. But but that's just part of the show. But yeah, my experience, I have been in the sport for 20-something years professionally, so I've got to know something.
Yeah. Can you blame editing for Luke Youlden? Did you guys have to speak? Have you spoken to him since this went to air, as it went to air, just to explain what he was seeing?
Yeah, it was sort of, I did, yeah. The night before the Gold Coast episode, I sort of sweat on it for a bit, thinking I need to ring him because it just come across really bad. And even Greg Murphy rang me the week before and said, I've just seen that episode. Have you spoken to Luke yet? I'm like, no, I haven't. He goes, oh, bro, you better. And I spoke to Luke, but he understands. He knows exactly what I'm like. I've known Luke a long time. We've been through a lot of shit together and win Bathurst together. You bonded for life, I think. And Luke gets it. I haven't spoken to him since those ones, but he knows. And he was the first one to admit that he didn't do a good job in some instance. But the best thing about it, all that pressure on Saturday for the whole team and Luke at Gold Coast, I walked out, whatever, spat the dummy, come back Sunday, we get a podium. So the team actually reacted. It was basically like, we're going to prove you wrong, you prick, and they all come back and prove me wrong. And on Sunday, we kicked ass.
There was a viewer question with regards to that. What was the walkout actually about? Was it you removing yourself from a situation because you thought you might say or do the wrong thing? Or was it just a dummy spit and I don't want to be here anymore?
It was, but so much of that stemmed over from Bathurst. I was still so angry at what happened at Bathurst. Yeah, I was just so angry at that whole Bathurst situation that that weekend I was just on edge. And you probably, like you just said, I didn't want to say the wrong thing. I'd already probably said a few things that I shouldn't have, and I just decided I need to get out of here because I was going to just explode.
Well, you mentioned Bathurst. The silver lining was the rebuild job that the guys and girls did. That was awesome. So at this point, we're going to catch up with plenty more people from Erebus Motorsport, including next up, Dennis Hoser.
Oh, that's trouble. Trouble for Penrite and big damage on that car.
Well, Dennis, crew chief, mate, I mean, first of all, what's your impression when you see the car go into the wall and it's the first day at Mount Panorama?
Oh, the whole year's of preparation is gone, pretty much. But we know we can fix it, but you're already behind. Every session, every lap you lose, you go behind. So,
how bad was it, the damage? Because initially you thought it was done, didn't you?
No, we never think it's done. But
I did.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to work all night.
What happened was we looked at the car, we took it apart. There's a lot of chassis work underneath that was damaged that we replaced in the corner. And me and Baz, when we go to Bathurst, most race venues, we try not to wear everyone out. So every night we have a curfew. So we choose the hardest guys and go for it and try and do it. And next day we toast. But yeah, we were behind big time after that. So, and then I think it hurt Dave's confidence in qualifying too, even though it was a wet session. It just didn't work. It was just wrong.
Yeah, and he just didn't want the car to get damaged again. And
I don't know what happened there, but it just wasn't a very good weekend for us.
Who wants to take the lead on pit stops and the discussion about pit stops in 2019?
Well, Dennis is pretty much in charge of them. I just yell at everybody.
So, Dan, was it a case of things just started to snowball? Things were going wrong, and you put maybe more pressure on yourselves to fix the errors, and it just got out of control, or were they all individual incidents that weren't related to each other?
Some of them, a lot of them were kind of individuals, like everyone had a turn, but I don't know. We practice here in the workshop or practice at the track, and 1 out of 20 times there might be a mistake. Then we get into a race, 1 out of 20 times we'll be right. So we don't come to understand it, maybe because we've got a younger crew, or maybe the pressure. Baz and me and Baz, all we want to do is win races, and we sometimes get a bit angry. Baz is way more angry than me, but that pressure, maybe we're too hard on everyone, but they're growing and they're getting better, and we can't explain it anyway. I don't
if we knew, we would have fixed it.
We would have fixed it.
We think it's just with some of the guys, it's just
pressure.
a mental thing. Yeah, they can't. You know, a guy that could stand at the crease at cricket and bat 100 balls in the nets and never go out, and the first ball go out. You can't comprehend why, but I don't know. We're trying to work on it. We've got Brad Hodge, who is a cricketer, and he's sort of been trying to help with that side of it and give us some ideas on how we could work on that side of things. But yeah, overall, it was just a lot of it was just nothing we could explain. We just practiced as much as we could and still sometimes failed.
I know you both just said that you can't explain what the crux of your issues were. In professional sport, and particularly professional sport psychology, there's the try element, and you can practice as much as you want here in the workshop, but when you get into that pressure situation, there's this innate ability, and your pit crew are like your drivers, that willingness to try a little bit too hard can sometimes overstep the mark. Did you have any discussions with your pit stop crew about that at any point?
Yeah, we did. I spoke to him multiple times about it, but yeah.
Some people can do it, some can't.
Some people can't, yeah.
I thrive on pressure, and sometimes I say something wrong, but inside I know exactly what I'm doing. Pressure actually helps me do things better, but some people, pressure just makes them fail. So I don't know. We're still working on it, and the guys work on it bloody hard, and we don't have the luxury of having 10 wheel guys to choose from. At stages last year, we had guys away, and we only had 4. So and they probably weren't.
On a good day.
And they probably weren't the best 4, but they did a good job and they were solid. But because the spotlight was on us with this Docker, it looks worse. And maybe that could have been some of it too. Some of the guys knew they were getting filmed, and and they just didn't handle it as well as others.
Also, some of our best results last year were from good pit stops. So there's some of our worst failures were from pit stops, but some of our best results so gained from it. So
and you see in the show, you watch it back and you see me being really hard on the pit stops, but then we do a good one, and they get the same they get the compliment back that you've done a bloody good job.
That's boring to me.
Hey?
That's boring.
That is, yeah.
Dennis, tell us. You say about the editing, you could feel it coming. I know at home you're almost cringing about the Gold Coast and the front bar. Can you talk us through that? Because when it happened, you almost wanted to look away, didn't you?
One thing we haven't practiced at all is front bumper bar change. So I think for here we should try one. If we get an hour spare, let's just work on it. See if we can get it down to 30 seconds or something. Okay, just thought.
That puts paid to the afternoon for car number 9 effectively. They'll get it back out there, but it'll be a long way down.
Wish this is fiddly up where the front bar actually attaches to the guard itself, to the fender.
How can it take this fucking long?
This is slower than we're used to seeing.
See ya, I'm going. I'm going. Huh? Fucking most embarrassing thing I've ever fucking seen.
Yeah.
So what happened for the whole year, like, Baz is usually right 1 out of 10 times. So that 9 out of 10 I'm right. So then they've only played those bits. So that was, he told us to do a bar practice and we actually didn't do it. And then it fell off. So we had to do it.
It's the only time all year, apparently.
It's the only time he's been right all year.
Dennis, thanks for your time today and your input throughout the series as well. We'll see you trackside again soon. It's the engineers' turn. Up next, they're in the hot seat.
Dipasquale battling with his teammate there, as you can see, Dave Reynolds.
Just gonna have to let him pass next lap. Down the back straight, he's letting him pass. They're just holding each other up. It's bullshit. Did I tell you? That's why we said it 2 laps ago. You didn't tell him.
What did I tell you?
Tell him to let him pass, that's what I said.
I fucking said twice.
You didn't say, you said let it make it easy.
Yeah, well,
You didn't say let him pass.
Yeah, and then pass.
You didn't say let him pass, Murphy. Water piss now, just fucking park it. Just fucking park it. Just fucking park it.
Yeah, you know what?
We don't deserve it. Just fucking park it.
Okay. Hey?
Just get him in.
There's no point, Daz. We've got 22 laps. If there's a safety car the next 22 laps, we get the lap back. I am not kidding you. That's the worst decision.
It can't be because everyone's going to pick if there's a safety car. So then he races and gets it back.
But then we get onto the back of the queue, get our lap back.
How do you get your lap back down? Radio is not working.
I know how to do strategy, Baz. Leave me to it.
Fair to say there is a lot going on at a data station. Mirko, Al, gentlemen, there's more than one way to skin a cat, isn't there? Because you two, it appears, are quite different in your personalities, but you both get the results. How does it work?
I think it all works because we're working towards a common goal. Obviously, Mirko's probably a bit more fiery at times and I'm a bit cooler at times, but we both just want to win, so we get the job done.
Mirko, for you?
Yeah, well, really like it. We really two completely different personality. Elle is a lot calmer than where I am. I'm a little bit more out of control at the moment, but yeah, it still doesn't matter. Like, as long as you get to the common goal, like, it doesn't matter how you get to win. Then as long as you get there, it doesn't.
Boys, what's it like having big bad bustling Barry over your shoulder throughout the race day and the intense pressure of that situation? Yeah, be honest, he's not listening.
Yeah, it's for me, like, it's fine. Like, we have our arguments and stuff sometimes, but at the end of the day, 5 minutes later, we're all good. So yeah, it's fine.
Al?
Yeah, for me, I've been doing this for 15 years now, and it's never any different. There's always people at the data stand. Everyone's high stressed. It's the intense time. It's what you put all your effort into. So everyone's going to be pushing hard, wanting to get the best out of it. So it doesn't really faze me. I think you saw that on the thing. Most of the time, it's just.
Most of the time. What was it?
One little number we did come up with was it took 32 races in 2019 for you to fire one back at Baz and tell him that you do know how to do strategy.
Yeah, that one I was thinking, it was a really long year last year. There was so much going on, and I think at that point we were all sort of over it. It was the last race of the year, and yeah, we just had a little moment.
Yeah, like Mirko said, we forget about it pretty quick, and I watched that back. I thought, I don't know why any of them said that, because it was just frustration, and Al knows what he's doing, and it's not often that I need to say something and he needs to actually do what I say. So, like I said before, it's, every now and again I'll say it and that's right, but obviously a lot of the time it's just another option, and I think that's how Al and Mirko take it, that they'll think about what I've said, and sometimes I might be right, or sometimes I might go, yeah, that's sort of half right, and they might use it, and as long as they filter out the bullshit that I say, which they do, it's fine.
Mirko, Barry referred to something earlier that you might tell us, and I reckon a little bird has told me what this might be. Midway through last year, did you pull the pin? Did you do a Baz at the Gold Coast and say, I've had enough, I'm out?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Oh, no, it wasn't really like that. It's a bigger story behind, but yeah.
So tell the story, we've got time, we're all listening.
It's not a big deal. Like, we had the meeting after New Zealand, and me and Baz had different views on a few things, and he told me, if you don't fucking like it, pack your bag and go, and then I did it, and that's it. Like, and then
So who had to make the call to say you can come back now?
we came back. We chatted on Monday, and everything was good, and yeah, we'll move on.
Yeah, we're both pretty headstrong, and it took a few days to contact each other. I was like, fuck him, I'm not ringing him. And he was probably thinking, fuck him, I'm not ringing him. And eventually we manned up and just met up, and it was all good. It was just frustration. And yeah, I've said it to people before, and most people don't react. But when I said to Mirko, if you don't like it, fuck off, he fucked off. So.
And do you still stand by your comments that you've never sacked anybody then?
Yeah, because
Does that count?
that wasn't sacking. It was his choice if he didn't like it.
From a personal perspective, and has this doco given you guys the opportunity to look back and learn about the way you interact coming into this year? Have you changed anything?
Oh, I don't think we've changed anything as such this year. It's always good to watch it back just to more so remember what happened and see it from a different point of view. Obviously, when you're in the moment, it's a fair bit going on. I think, even through last year, we had a couple of moments at Perth and whatever, but every time we have a little thing that we don't think went right, we always review it straight away. So we haven't sort of needed the doco to tell us we need to do things better. We try and just, after every meeting, get better.
Will really came on during the Enduros last year, and obviously earned himself the ultimate prize of a contract. What role did you play, and what did you see from him, and how did you have to help guide him through that to get him so that he could pass people? Because at one point apparently he couldn't.
With Will, it's different personality. It's a bit of you got to keep him under control at times, because unless he goes, his own way and push a little bit too hard and then what he needs to, and then ends up with nothing. We put a few things in place to try and keep him under control, and they all worked, and then he got a few results. So.
What kind of things?
We've done a lot of things. We took the lap time off his dash and took the reference lap time off his dash, just to make him focus on driving and don't think about lap time. Because, if he drives properly, which he's able to, the lap time comes. Obviously, if he drives 3/4 of the lap, worrying about the lap time, it's trying to find half a second one corner. It's not going to work. So, where if he just drives by feel, he's able to, and he proved it. So.
And on the opposite side of the data station, Al, throughout that Enduro campaign, you were having to lift Luke up when Will was going so well. What was your role there to try and get him back up off the canvas, so to speak, after copying a couple of big blows?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a very sort of mellow personality to begin with, so it doesn't take long for his confidence to get a hit. And obviously what happened at Bathurst, basically 2 laps into the campaign, he was basically hurting from that moment onwards. And we tried as much as we could to pump him back up, just support him. But obviously it was a tough series for Enduro drivers last year, because they were fighting against Lowndes and Tanders, and he was trying to raise himself to that benchmark, and potentially we asked too much of him at times to try and match that, when all we needed was his best.
And no pre-event either for him thrown into the fire, weren't they, at Bathurst? In terms of Dave's personality, I reckon a lot of people might have been surprised by what they saw of Dave Reynolds. They might have had this idea that he was an extroverted, really confident, jovial prankster. That's not the truth, is it? And I think we saw that in this doco. He needs lifting up sometimes too, doesn't he?
100%.
More than anyone.
Yeah. Self-confidence is probably his biggest weakness, to be honest. He's got massive natural ability, but sometimes he doesn't actually believe it, and he talks himself down all the time, and eventually keep talking yourself down, you're not going to do the job. So that's probably most of our job here with him, is letting him know that he's as good as he actually is.
If he had the self-belief that Anton's got, it'd be a pretty massively strong unit. They're both really good, but Anton believes he's the best in pit lane, 100%. And he is one of the best, and Dave doesn't believe he's the best in pit lane and just thinks he's good, and the car's good and the engineer's good, and that's why he goes good. But if Dave could just raise above that, he would take another step in his career, and that's why we've got the long-term contract, because we still think the best is to come with Dave. He's still got so much to offer, and we've got 10 more opportunities to win Bathurst with him. So. Yeah.
And final question, guys. Pit stops clearly were an issue for a variety of reasons in 2019. As an engineer, you're not the ones that are out there manning the cars. How hard is it to take when your strategy is undone by often someone's error?
Yeah, it's definitely disappointing. Everyone feels the pain of not getting it right. Yeah, for me in particular, I couldn't do what they do, so I don't feel like I can blame anyone for...
Not strong enough to lift a wheel?
Yeah, well, I could change it, but that would definitely be slower than when they even stuff it up. So I don't feel like I can blame someone for not doing it properly at that point. It's just a frustration that you're not getting what you hoped you'd get, but it's all part of the game. You just got to move on.
Yeah, obviously it's frustrating because you're sitting there and you just got to hope that everything goes the right way. At the same time, I've been doing wheel changes, so you know what's going on. You know when you look the car coming down pit lane, you know you only got one chance to get it right. So you want to get the most out of that moment, and sometimes it doesn't go as planned, and unfortunately it's just racing.
All right, well, Baz is going to stick around. Al, Mirko, thanks for your time. Mirko, we're glad that you're sticking around with the team as well. That
right.
you didn't walk out, that you came back. That's a good outcome. Thanks for your time,
Thanks,
gentlemen.
guys.
All right, up next, Luke Jordan, Bathurst. It was brutal. He is our next guest.
Oh, and that's trouble. Trouble for Penrite and big damage on that car. It's Luke Jordan.
He said too much understeer. That's not too much understeer. That's a fuck up. What a fucking dumb.
Here it is. Look at the damage there.
Greg finding someone else for Sandown. He's not fucking driving Sandown.
That shouldn't be happening on that part of the racetrack.
What a fucking goose.
Well, he's been one of the best co-drivers for more than 2 decades in this sport, and to boot, he's one of the best guys in the paddock as well. I talk of Luke Jordan. Luke, thanks for your time, mate. For us, I think that was pretty hard to watch back, the honesty and everything that you went through in that Enduro campaign of 2019. How did you find it?
Yeah, it was an interesting time, I guess. So it probably stems from, I guess, expectation leading into the whole season. You know, we were quick in 17, obviously won it. Bathurst in reference to 18, we brained them basically, you know what I mean? I think I was like a second quicker than everyone in the co-driver session. Dave had pole, you know, we just literally walked away from the field. So coming into 19, we had obviously a high expectation. And then when things started to unravel, obviously how we reacted to that, and it was a difficult time, that's for sure.
Luke, you and I have known each other for a long time, mate. I know that your default driving setting is 11 out of 10. Did you feel in 19 that you had nowhere more to go after the previous 2 years? Was that some of the battle that you had to deal with?
It's funny, I came into Bathurst really, really confident. You know, I mean, we had a really good test. I was as close as to Dave as I've ever been at Winton. You know, I think I did a low 19, which is quite fast. So coming into the race, like really, really confident. Obviously, the Commodore had an updated aero package. It was a little bit untested, but initially the car felt quite good. But as the sessions progressed, we realised, certainly I didn't have my head around the aero package like I did the year before, and the car was very understeery, so losing a lot of front grip, especially in the high-speed stuff. And you know, especially when you don't drive these cars a lot. I do a lot of mental imagery, which I sure used to do, Jonesy, and watch lots of footage from the year before. So I had a bit of a default in my head about how to drive the car. And when it wasn't exactly what I thought it was, it took me a little bit, I guess, to sort of change my mental approach to it. And obviously the crash just you know, put paid to it, basically.
Can we cover something very quickly from the doco? You were claiming understeer, Baz was claiming a mistake. Did we find the happy middle ground there somewhere?
Well, obviously it's a mistake because I drove past the limits of the car, you know what I mean? But looking back to the incident, I was pushing reasonably hard, but I've never experienced a situation like that in the car, especially that part of the track before. So when you have an accident there, you usually have it further down, you know what I mean? So as it crested the hill, I literally had no turn. I've never experienced it like I hit a wet road. So that was unusual. I thought if I was going to ever have an accident there, to be coming out of the dip, out of Reed Park, not actually going into it. So it was just a little bit baffling to start with. But I think Al downloaded the data and said I'd probably carried more throttle than Dave did in his qualifying lap the year before. But the first part of the lap, I'm not even sure if I was purple. So I was pretty quick, I think, in that first part of the lap. And I just felt the car was underneath me. But obviously when I crested the hill there at Reed Park, it wasn't. So.
Luke, Baz admitted that he did give you a call before the Gold Coast episode went to air just to have a chat, perhaps clear the air. Is that how the conversation went from your point of view?
Yeah, it's probably Baz apologising in his own way, I guess.
Or did he call you a few expletives?
Well, I mean, he asked me if I've been watching the show. I sort of said yes and no. There's bits of it that I didn't really want to recall, I guess. So even if I didn't hear what Baz said, I could feel it, you know what I mean? So obviously I was there in the moment, you know what I mean? So I didn't actually know what Barry said, obviously, during the race meeting, but I could definitely feel it. So I actually probably thought I come out of it pretty well, to be fair, knowing Baz.
Baz, do you have anything to say to Luke now, having watched it back and the series has gone to air? Are you happy to let us in on your take on the phone conversation and how it's wrapped up? Because as you said earlier before Luke joined us, you've had the ultimate high with him at Bathurst, and that bond will always be there.
Yeah, like I said before, and Luke, he's won Bathurst for us, and we're never going to lose that. And whatever happened at Bathurst this year, it was just, to me, a driver makes an error and hits the wall, the car doesn't. So I'm always going to say that, no matter whether it's Luke or someone else. So that's just my honesty. But Luke and I, like he said, he could feel my tension, and my tension, I've always been like it. I think I have this thing that comes out of me that I don't need to say anything, and everybody knows, just a look on my face or something. But me and Luke sort of sometimes looked at each other and we just knew, like, fuck, what do we do here? Like, we didn't need words, but Luke does an awesome job. It always has for us, and even when he makes a mistake, the next day he can make up for it. Like Gold Coast, it was the worst Saturday, and it wasn't, like I explained before, it wasn't anything to do with really what happened. It was just the whole tension from Bathurst, and then we come back and we get a podium and a surfboard on Sunday. So there's nothing you can say bad about it. But then we go to Sandown, and then I thought Bathurst was behind me mentally, and then you hear that a certain team had an illegal engine, and all of a sudden this whole thing, the anger builds up again, and I'm like, some people call me bipolar, and I go from one day really good to next day really bad, or within 2 seconds. It doesn't have to be a day. And sometimes people cop that, and Luke, I would have never done that in front of Luke. Just things I've said on the show, he saw it because of the show. Yeah. Without that, he wouldn't have seen it. And it sounds like, oh, you backstab, but it's not how it is. It's sometimes you need to build the team up, sometimes you need to build the drivers up, and you never do those conversations together. So I think that's probably the best way to explain it. And some of the things that I've said, I hate what I've said about Luke and from the show, but it's there now, and I think Luke knows me well enough that 5 minutes later it's all good. But I hope we never ever have a problem. We can't not sit down and have a beer. I'm sure that's fine. Hopefully,
is that fine? You can have a beer, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely, as long as he's paying.
Yeah, well played. So Luke, you have retired, just to confirm that we won't see you again.
From Supercars?
Correct.
That's a big difference.
Yes, Supercars,
yes.
yeah. Okay.
Definitely stop racing. So, I've had GT programs, some Carrera Cup things lined up for this year. It's just a shame that it hasn't actually happened. But, I'm definitely not going back to Supercars. There's a reason I made the decision, I guess. And the reason is that I can't devote enough time and energy to it in this point of my life. I've got a young family. My career outside of racing is taking off. And to be able to compete at the level that I expect myself to be able to compete at, I need to devote a lot more time and effort into it, and I just can't. So that's the reason. Well,
Luke, congratulations. As we've said, you've scaled the heights and you've been one of the best for 20-odd years as a professional co-driver. Well done. Thanks for your time today, and we'll see you at a racetrack soon. If I said something quickly, I'd say, look, whatever I said at the end of that show, if Luke said, I want to continue in 2020, he would have still been higher on the consideration list. Like,
we're even talking about it, whether Anton and Luke might have been a bit better match for size than Will and Dave. So Luke was not out of the equation at all, even though whatever I said in the show, he wasn't out of the equation. It was like he's still 100%. If he wanted to continue, he would have been considered 100%.
Okay, interesting. Another bit of support there from Baz for Luke. Luke, thanks again for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Cheers, Baz.
All right, so Luke himself referred to it, the young guns. They're coming fast, and up next, it's Will Brown.
Determination, and so Will Brown has a look down the inside. Can he get it done? Yes, Will Brown through to second.
Drive, mate. All-wheel drive. Very good. Very proud of you. Very good driving. Very good.
What a year it was for Will Brown. Not only did he secure himself a contract, he got his pilot's licence as well, and it appears he went through puberty. Will Brown, how are you, mate?
Good, guys. 8 weeks going here.
It's a good look. It's a good look, mate. Well done. What a year it was for that season to be the one that was documented. As it was in many ways, from our point of view anyway, the birth and arrival of you as you secured that main game contract.
Yeah, definitely. As a young guy, you never know when your career is going to kick off. You know, as a co-driver, it's great, but we all want to get into the main series. That's our goal. So pretty much last year was ultimately the year that got me that contract, and it's exciting to be, starting off with Erebus.
Will, it was possibly touch and go there a little bit for you when we followed the documentary. Baz came out at Bathurst and said that you can't pass. How important was it for you to get the job done on Tander at Sandown at the end of the straight there, so you could get one up on him?
Yeah, I think that was probably the one that got me the contract. I remember that was the weekend we sort of had a chat about it, Baz. But no, it's one of those things. It's great to get it, and worked really hard throughout the enduro season and last year in Dunlop Super 2. So it was sort of do or die for me, really.
Baz, can you tell us a bit about Will? Like, in terms of earlier, you said that Anton is super confident. Dave needs lifting up. What's the personality of this guy like? What's his key strength?
Yeah, I first met Will at the end of, I think, 16 at Phillip Island. I think he was racing in 86 or something. And, obviously had seen what he'd done, and he'd won a lot of races already in his career. And he's very confident, but he's different to Anton. Really confident, knows his own ability. Doesn't need to question that. And I think just applying it properly, like Mirko said, things that we did to make sure that he'd focus just on his ability and his driving. Just look out the front and drive the car as fast as you can. Don't worry about your lap times. As soon as that happened, it all just come, and you get to the end of the session and go, you're up the top. And the passing thing, he definitely made up for that at Gold Coast. Like when he got turned around lap 1, he ultimately, the guy that won the race, I think Tander won the race, will come back through the field and still had the same gap at the end of the race that he had when he come back on. So he's basically as fast as the leaders passing people. So that was probably the standout drive for the Enduro campaign that I saw, the Gold Coast comeback. Other people might think it was a co-driver race at Sandown, but the one at the Gold Coast was really good, and it just showed that his level is where it needs to be in the main game.
Did this team make you feel more comfortable, Will, off the back of teaming up with Anton and both of you entering into that first endurance campaign together?
Yeah, definitely. They gave me the confidence. They always believed in what I could do. They gave me a shot after 1 year in Super 2, which you generally don't see a lot of the time. So I guess they gave me my go in the main game supercars, which I'm really grateful for. But the whole way through, they had confidence in me, and I guess they always built that up, and were quite happy with what I was doing. So I think if you're doing the job and they're happy, we built it around as a team. So yeah, really happy.
How'd you find the pressure of the contract talk? Because there was some journo in pit lane that seemed to want to link you to every team. I reckon throughout the year he had you going there. So how'd you find that?
Yeah, it was just one of those things for me and my family. Like, we're probably, it's difficult to do Super 2. It's an expensive category. It's all of that. So I was probably at my do or die year, where if I didn't get a contract for this year, I wouldn't have been racing Super 2. And then you get a co-drive because you're not racing Super 2. So really, Erebus, I've got a contract for next year. I'm racing Super 2 this year, and this is where I wanted to stay. Obviously, my name was getting thrown around with other teams, but I was more than happy, even if I could have got a contract this year, to wait 1 year to be in with this team, because we all get along very well. It's like a family, and also they gave me my shot. So I think loyalty is one of my things, and I'd like to stay here.
Well, you can pay me my commission because I talked up your stocks, I think, and I deserve a bit of payment. You're a great guy, and we are looking forward to seeing you racing in the main game. And congratulations and thanks for your time and as part of this, not only today but throughout the series, mate.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So at this point, we'll farewell Will, and we'll also farewell Baz. Baz, thank you for your time, and thank you for making the series in many ways what it was.
Thank you.
All right, Barry Ryan there. And up next is Brad Hodge, the secret to success at Erebus. Well, you may ask, what does an Australian cricketer have to do with Erebus Motorsport? Well, if you've been at the racetrack, in particular in 2019, there's every chance you've seen Brad Hodge there. Brad, tell us, how did this relationship with the team come about? We know you are a hardcore motorsport fan.
Yeah, I am. I love motorsport and follow it for a long, long time. You know, the Ford and Holden rivalry back all in the day. But it came about through David Reynolds coming to do something at the Big Bash League, and I sort of went, I was next into bat and went and nuffed him out for a little bit of time. And I spoke to Barry about coming and trying to learn a few different things. A lot of, you know, high profile coaches and stuff trying to cross over into other sports and just getting ideas and bouncing ideas off each other, how to improve your team, how to improve your unit, and ultimately try and gain success. So yeah, that's how it came about.
What have you found in terms of the similarities between the environments that you've worked in? And wearing the baggy green is often said to be the highest honour in this land. I guess the obvious difference is you're risking your life every time you hop into a race car, but the professionalism and the pressure these guys are under, you would be able to relate to very clearly, wouldn't you?
Something I wasn't aware of until I got in the, you know, the deep environment, you know, into the garage on race day. And it's something that you can see the pressure. And there's a very much, the similarities between, I think, cycling, motorsport and cricket are very much similar, where, you know, you have a background team who work hard behind the scenes, and ultimately you've got this ego who goes out on centre stage and tries to get the job done. And, you know, what was evident is how many factors contribute to making sure that success happens on the field. It's similar to cricket. You know, you do the work, there's a preparation phase, and ultimately a goal phase, and if you achieve it or not, and you have it and you analyse it and come back to the square one the next day. So I found a lot of similarities in that aspect.
Brad, you mentioned before about coaches. Now, Barry Ryan's business card, we'll actually call him the CEO of Erebus Motorsport, but he is effectively the coach here, isn't he? And what have you brought to the table to help him in that role to be a better coach?
And principal as well. I think team principal's listed there as well. There's a lot of hats that Barry has to wear, and I think it's very difficult to actually manage the broad aspect of the whole business and then make sure things happen on game day. But what I've seen is his style is very much letting people work within their unit and try and make sure that they make the decisions, which is really good coaching, and then analyse at the end. I think as a, you know, you can be passionate, there's no doubt he's passionate, but you know, in modern sport, dictatorship doesn't really happen. So what I've witnessed is a really good aspect of letting people do their job, swim in between your lanes, and I think that's, you know, why Erebus has been successful for, you know, many years now.
We said earlier on, it's hard to fit 500 hours of filming into 8 episodes. Yep. Was it a fair representation of the Erebus that you know from what you saw by watching the series?
Yeah, I saw a lot of passion. There's no doubt that there was a lot of passion. There was a lot of ambition as well. And you could see the frustrations when those ambitions didn't get transformed from here, the work that had done behind the scenes, to, you know, match day, as we call it. So, you know, you could see that there was also a lot of distractions, very much similar in any sport. Cricket, we have the same distractions. A lot of variables as well, like cricket. You know, what's the rain doing? Is there some clouds today? What's the track, you know, condition? So similar to cricket, is it swingy? Is it shiny? Is it sun overcast? Those aspects are really important, and I think the attention to detail was critical, and they're things which I saw, and also under pressure. It's amazing how people react under pressure, and it's critical that you take your opportunity. And I think there was certainly, times throughout the series where just those opportunities may have been missed.
All right, well, Brad, it's always great when we see you at the track, and we look forward to seeing you there again, and also being an E-Series driver as well. So you can say that you are a Supercars driver, Brad. Thank you very much.
There's always a future for us. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your time. Up next, it is the turn of the drivers. Anton Dipasquale and Dave Reynolds will join us here on the panel.
There you go. Thank you.
All right. I found out that you were talking to my sister on Tinder yesterday.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's so good. Oh, yes.
You remember Nikita?
Oh,
there's so many, isn't there?
I've had a busy day, mate.
Excuse me, your name's Nikita? No. I found her, Nikita. I found her. It's actually her. It's actually her. She's not bad too.
When the boys join us now, begs the question, Anton, how is Nikita?
I don't know, you can ask Dave, he talks to her more than me.
So has there been correspondence with Nikita since the series ended?
Good first question. I really enjoy that.
I don't mind that, that's good. No.
How was it having cameras follow you effectively 24/7, picking up everything, including things like that?
Well, just on that story, it was not set up at all. It was all as live,
legit.
and I just couldn't believe it actually happened and
Says
come
Dave.
together. No, 100%. I
The
didn't.
panic erupted when we all knew as soon as it
Yeah.
happened, because you went and told everyone, and then those people went and told
That doesn't
everyone.
sound
and
like
the whole
Dave.
place
No.
just erupted. It just erupted. But what was it like having cameras in your face? I imagine not for every driver that wouldn't be a comfortable thing.
It was all right. Like, we kind of got used to it at the end, I think. It was a bit intrusive, but
Yeah.
I think
I think
it
at the
was good.
start, like, I didn't know the guys filming and stuff, you're like, and then by the end of it, you're all mates and you just like, they have you back. So they
I
sort of-
assume they had to do a lot of editing.
Yeah,
Because we
so
would have
they-
had some terrible conversations.
They had
Like
your
some
back and they make
really
it look
bad
like almost like an idiot, so
conversations.
it's good.
They have asked for a new beeper button in their editing suite, particularly for you, Dave.
Well, it's called the Reynolds button. The radio stations constantly have them for
One
me.
thing I want to ask you guys is, in the world of motorsport, teammate rivalries are rife. There's very few teammates that actually genuinely get on, but I got the sense from you guys that you're pretty good mates. Is that right? Particularly, there was a scene at, I think, Newcastle. It didn't look like there were any cameras around you. You'd had a power steering failure. Dave asked or offered you a gel at the end there, and that felt really genuine. Is that right? Do you get on?
I can't remember.
yeah, like,
It was
I mean,
probably set up. No, we
after-
get on like a house
yeah.
on fire. Like in our team, it's we do want to beat each other, but if he beats me, I'm happy for him. At the end of the day, we're trying to beat everyone else, not just each other.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I think the idea is beat everyone and then beat each other after that.
Yeah.
So if we're working together,
If we're
more
1-2,
powerful force than singles. So yeah.
if we're 1 and 2, we're fighting it out. I think we'd be
Probably
happy.
hate it and be okay to hate
Then
each
we
other.
can then we can sort of work on beating each other. But until that happens,
Unless Anton's in front, because what I gathered was he won't roll over for you ever.
he won't.
Perth?
Yeah.
Perth?
Perth?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, look, we're just going around, and I think there was a bit of stuff going on behind the pits.
What
and
happened? Oh yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes, now
different
I-
strategies.
Nah, we're good. It was a
and-
bit far behind. Like,
If I had,
I'm racing.
I just couldn't pass him. I just wasn't good
I
enough.
had too much drive. Had the soft rear spring on.
Was there anything that went to air that you cringed at, that you saw and went, oh, don't know about that?
Every time I was on camera, yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you struggle? Did you actually struggle?
I hate watching myself.
back? Yeah.
I don't watch myself. Hate my voice. Hate everything about myself.
I think it's like a normal human reaction is to like
Yeah.
not watch yourself too much. I mean, I didn't mind it. It wasn't anything too bad. Like I think it all sort of made us look like what we are, which is good.
For me, there was two very different personality traits between you guys, and I'll start with you, Dave. You know, one thing, we've known each other quite a long time, both grew up in
20 odd
Albury.
years.
Yeah, exactly, bought some race cars from me. One thing that really stood out was you come across as such a jovial, happy-go-lucky guy, but there's a little bit of something inside you there that you just need to find a little bit more self-belief. Did you pick up on that, or is it something that you feel is there?
Yeah, I've always known that. Like, I'm not the most self-believing, confident person out there. And when I do get a lot of confidence, I do go a lot better. So that is one thing I need to work on as a human in the racing. But I always equated this is kind of getting a bit philosophical, but the harder the legends of the sport were super arrogant, and I just didn't want to be like that. So it feels like if I've got to get the most out of myself, I've got to be a bit more arrogant and I don't know, it's just not my nature person, so it's kind of weird.
You could take a leaf out of Anton's book, perhaps.
So you're saying he's arrogant?
Judging by what Barry and the engineers had to say about Anton, he's got plenty of self-belief, in a good way.
Yeah, well, that's... Yeah. See, if I could have a lot of that, I'd be happy, maybe. I don't know. Would I do better? Who knows? I don't know.
For what it's worth, you're certainly not arrogant, mate.
Oh, thanks.
But your self-belief is there, Anton, and it comes across. Certainly not arrogant, but every time we saw you or you walked into the circuit, you looked like you were there to win. Do you pick up on that when you look back at it?
Not really. I think, yeah.
That's how he walked in here this morning.
Far from arrogant, but yeah, self-belief. I mean, we're in a professional sport. We all have to believe we're probably the best, or else I wouldn't rock up. I'm there to win, and I think that's the only thing I'm there to do. So, 100% believe we can, and I believe in the team around me and all that stuff. So, I mean, I want to believe it because then that's how it comes true. So, yeah, have to back ourselves in.
It was interesting, the contract situation for both of you. Dave, you initially were saying, doesn't bother me, it's all good, I'm happy here at Erebus, but then you kind of admitted, it
gets to you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you think it doesn't, but it does. Because I've been racing for 30 odd years, and your whole life comes down to the dotted line, basically. So you try and push all that aside, but it's at the forefront of your mind all the time. You can't escape it. It's your livelihood.
Yeah. Do you use journos to drop a few little storylines to them that actually aren't correct to try and increase your standing at Erebus and perhaps make them give you a bit more money?
I wish I did. I should have done that.
I think you might have done that.
Really? Oh.
Are you mates with a few, aren't you?
I'm mates with everyone, but I don't play the tactical game that well. I'm really terrible at it, actually.
Fair enough. Scotty McLaughlin.
You can read me like a book, apparently.
You can. Scotty McLaughlin. That was legit in the end? How did it all start? How's it all ended? Where is it now, post-series? How did you think it came across watching it?
Well, at the start, we grew up as mates, and then one thing led to another, and I don't know, just ended up not liking me so much because I give honest feedback, and I am who I am. I try and tell the truth always, and I don't know, people just don't like it, and we end up falling out, and he doesn't like me.
It seemed to stem from your comments based around the Mustang coming in more so than a personal attack at Scott.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And then it seemed to flare from there. Is that your thoughts on it?
Yeah, that's what I sort of thought. The Mustang was a very, very, very good car at the time, or still is now. And he took all that personally. I didn't believe that he was the greatest driver there ever was to be. And it was just really bizarre at that time. So he took all the technical comments that I was making about how good the car was personally against his performance, and I don't know. It was all just really messy and just really bizarre. But obviously, no, I think he's a good driver, but I stand by my comments, I think.
On the upside, we coined the phrase podcast wars, and it certainly helped your podcast, and it certainly helped his.
Anton, for you at Phillip Island, getting yourself onto the podium. And Betty, I don't know, did you realise that she perhaps wasn't in your corner in bringing you to this team when she made that statement at the time that she had to be kind of convinced? Did you know that already?
Yeah, but that's all right.
Because she loves you now.
Yeah, she's good. Not
at the start, eh?
No, she was friendly from the start. It was not like, it wasn't like that. I think she wanted a more experience, someone who could bring an equal to Dave at the time, where Barry and the engineers sort of said, no, let's go that way and then build up from within. And that's what we ended up doing. So, and here we are now. So I think she's happy with the decision it made. It's worked out thing, probably saved a lot of money in the meantime too.
She's pretty cool, isn't she, Betty?
Yeah, she's fantastic.
For you guys,
cool.
It's to have as your team owner.
Yeah, she's fantastic, yeah. The best team owner I've ever raced for, and I've raced for a couple, so.
Yeah, because she lets you just be who you are.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, I think so, because she is who she is.
Yeah.
So she understands, everyone being their own. Me and Dave are very different, although we're good mates and very similar in many ways too, very different, and it's all accepting and it's all the same, it's all good.
In terms of your future, it seems like in many ways the team is future-proofing themselves for your departure with Will being brought on, and they openly kind of said, if you go, that's what we're doing. Is that weird for you to see and know there's a new guy already contracted to either join the team or replace you?
No, not really. Just got to get on with it, get results, which we obviously can't do right now because all the stuff going on. But yeah, we'll just do the best you can on track, and you sort of generally future should take care of itself if you don't make a fool of it. So results and racing always speaks louder than anything else.
Dave's got a 10-year contract in his pocket. That's why he's sort of sitting a little bit lopsided there. It's quite thick.
The George Costanza wallet.
Anton, for you, with where we're going to into the future, what would it mean for you to be a long-term Erebus Motorsport driver?
Yeah, I think anyone wants to obviously stay within a comfortable area they are, team and stuff. So there's somewhere where you can build and create and go for championship stuff. That's where you want to be. So whether, any team that is, obviously is what any driver wants, loyalty and staying long term for sure.
So all in all, the inside line, would you do it again?
I think we're doing it again.
Yeah.
I think it's already started.
You go again?
Yeah, we're doing it again, yeah.
Fantastic. We look forward to it. Gentlemen, thank you for your time today, and thank you for your insights.
Thank you very much.
Throughout the 12-month process. It was awesome. AJ, thank you for joining us today. I think we've learned a lot.
We certainly have. We've had a few laughs along the way, and look, for me, it was a really, really good insight, as I mentioned, to our sport and the way it operates, behind closed doors.
Yeah, process certainly well worth doing for the fans at home, and I think for all of us involved in the industry. Thanks for your time. This has been the Inside Line Series Wrap-Up Show.